Tim, if you can record and make sure that we have closed caption transcription enabled for participants to be able to opt in to that, please. All right. So I think it's worth really defining what it is we mean by a product designer and not assume that everyone who has shown up tonight is going to know exactly what product design is. You may have heard terms like UX design, user experience, or UI design, user interface, and be wondering, well, what does that have to do with product design? Well, the thing about a product designer is that they really work across all of the phases of product development lifecycle. So everything from early research, where you might be trying to define who your customers are, what it is that you're building, who are you competing against in the market for your business, and then launching a new product in a startup. So it could be, going out and testing early ideas with your users and building prototypes in tools like Figma and Webflow and InVision. And then taking that all the way into final execution, what we call high fidelity mockups with some of these design tools, and really getting into interaction design and visual composition, prototyping with animations and Adobe After Effects, and building websites and building apps and software interfaces. So a product designer knows a little about a lot across the product development lifecycle, but tends to deep dive and specialize in particular areas, right? So product designer doesn't necessarily have to do all of these things all the time, but they know enough about them to collaborate with cross-functional teams, and they tend to specialize and go deep into a couple of these areas. So who's hiring product designers? Why is this a thing out in the job market? Well, the simple and short answer is that almost anyone that you can think of is hiring product designers. So on the right, we've pulled in the top companies that are currently hiring for a product designer position. This is on glassdoor.com as of, I believe, last week or last month. And you can see many recognizable names from IBM to Walt Disney to Twitter, to Google and Amazon, to Facebook, Capital One, Salesforce. Now these are big, top tier companies, but that goes all the way down to brand new startups on the cutting edge of new technology and innovation in industries like healthcare, robotics, service design in government. And we know that this is a really important sector and job role to be in because across different data sources such as HR Forecast, we're seeing that in technology, all of these different domains are some of the highest paying skills and highest in demand skills forecasted for the next 5 years. And you see AI, machine learning, big data, virtual reality and augmented reality, blockchain, cybersecurity, video production, and then user experience. And now the interesting thing is, if you look back at these companies that are working in some of these sectors, design works across all of these different areas. You have product designers working in cloud computers and cybersecurity and AI and VR, AR, and blockchain, okay? So user experience is one of the highest paying skills in tech forecasted for the next 5 years. But it also has the advantage that it works across all of these different skill sets, which I think is a really cool and unique thing for product design. Now, when it comes to the skills that make a really great product designer, we look to LinkedIn and we see that the top 5 soft skills are creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. And these are 5 things that are core components of our program that we teach you when it comes to working with other designers and working in teams. So you are going to be in this product design program at Flatiron, you're going to be developing creative, persuasive, collaborative, adaptable, and high EQ muscles by working in a pod-based learning environment in product design. And then you can see on the right the top 10 hard skills Again, cloud computing and blockchain, right? Those are right at the top. But then here you have UX design right there at number 5. So these trends are things that we have seen growing over the past couple of years, which is just a very exciting thing, I think, for our program and for our students. The World Economic Forum also recently put out a Future of Jobs report. And here they stated that the top skills and skill groups which employers see as rising in prominence in the lead to 2025 include critical thinking and analysis, problem solving, skills in self-management, active learning, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. Listen, these are all things that you are going to be working through and learning in a boot camp environment. So again, just some exciting trends that we see when it comes to the qualities that also make good product designers are in high demand across all employers and sectors. Now, at this point, you may be, thinking about, well, there are a couple of things that come to mind. You might think, well, I'm not a creative person. I don't have an artistic background or a graphic design background, right? I know the difference between red, green, and blue, but I don't know how to define those things, right? Or I don't know typography. Well, not only do we teach you those things, but it's not true that this is a barrier to becoming a great product designer. You do learn those fundamentals of visual design, but you can also specialize in areas like research, interaction design, and UX, or even something else, right? You can go deeper into those things. It doesn't just have to be the visual layer, although, again, you will learn some of that. Another thing that we often hear as a barrier is we don't want to learn to code, right? Or we don't believe that we can learn to code. First of all, I have seen anyone and everyone learn to code a little bit. All right. If you can read this screen and if you're here tonight, you can learn to code. All right. We teach enough HTML and CSS in web design so that you can be a better product designer. We're not trying to make you a software engineer or a data scientist or anything like that, right? But the simple truth of the matter is you will be a better product designer and a better teammate and collaborator for other disciplines like software engineering if you know enough code to, be able to recognize and know what you're speaking about. Do you have to quit your job? Absolutely not. We have a really wonderful part-time program where you can take 40 weeks to get through the entire program while still getting the same core quality curriculum that the live in-person experience gets, as well as access to instructors, other students, and resources. So the part-time program is not a lesser program or different, really. It's just taking the appropriate amount of time that you need in order to be flexible so you can still get the great product design education. And then some people think, well, I've got to decide, do I want to do UX, do I want to do UI, or do I want to be a design researcher? Even though all students do get the same core curriculum, you do get opportunities to specialize later in the course. In fact, our capstone project is a specialization project where you can choose if you want to do highlight research skills, highlight UX skills, or visual and UI skills. So everything we teach you will help you do all of them better. But the truth is, some people come in knowing that they already want to specialize in something like research or UX or UI. And so you'll have many opportunities along the way through labs and projects to highlight and specialize in those areas. So let's dig a little bit into the curriculum of what we actually teach. This is kind of a big slide, a lot of overwhelming content, but we're going to zoom down into these different areas in a second. But I wanted to give you a sense of the overall journey that you might go through in our program. So as soon as you apply and put down your deposit, we're going to send you some fantastic pre-work. We want to make sure that you are ready for launch day, you're ready for day one. So you're going to be doing some training on tools like Figma, InVision, and Webflow, and onboarding to the basic fundamentals of UX and UI design. We want to get you really familiar with the software and with the concepts that you're going to be learning starting day one. We start with Process UX as our very first phase, and that lasts in the live program for 3 weeks, right? we start right into design ethics, inclusive design, and accessibility. All of these three things are fundamental parts of the entire student experience and program. That's why we start Module 1, Week 1 with those subjects: design ethics, accessibility, and inclusive design. And then we start teaching you how to do quantitative and qualitative research studies, right? How do you go out and get the data that you need to have confidence to make good design decisions, right? How do you collaborate with other researchers and product managers and clients in order to get good, credible information? So we're going to teach you a lot of different research methods and data analysis. And then we get into things, just ideation, sketching, really flexing the creative muscles and teaching you how to unlock a lot of the potential that might be kind of stored inside your brain, and let out some of those creative impulses with sketching and ideation and low fidelity prototyping. In Process UI, we move into visual composition and typography and color and get into some really neat things with interaction and animation. And then we follow that up with 6 weeks of Studio 1 and Studio 2. This is when you start to become more like a practicing designer, and you'll start working on projects that reflect real-world experience, right? So we went to hiring managers and we started asking them, well, what type of projects, what type of activities and tasks are you asking new product designers to do? And we used the backwards design process and built out these project prompts so that you can work on projects for your portfolio that will reflect the type of work that you're going to be doing as soon as you get your new job in UX or UI. In portfolio phase is when we take everything that you've learned and that you've worked so hard on in the first 4 phases, and we teach you how to really communicate it and present it in a persuasive and credible way. Right? And we're also going to help you build an online portfolio of all of this work. And we'll teach you to create a case study that really shows off all of your process, all of your decisions, and all of your hard work. As soon as you graduate after the end of portfolio phase, you're not done with Flatiron yet, because we have a whole tech prep and career prep phase where you're going to get 180 days of career services support. So that's going to be everything from resume building to networking opportunities, mock interviews, whiteboarding exercises, portfolio polishing, portfolio review sessions, just this, this whole plethora of events and things that you're going to be working on during tech prep and career prep. So you've got that support while you're out there interviewing and moving into a job. So I'm going to deep dive just a little bit, because some of you may be here tonight thinking about, well, I want to hear more about typography, or I want to hear more about ethical design and some of these things. So I want to hit some of the highlights that I think are really good differentiators for our program and part of what makes our program special. So I mentioned on the previous slide that we do get pretty deep into design ethics and inclusive design. Now, why is that sort of a foundational part of our program? Well, it's because technology and design have the potential to really change things for the better in our culture, in our society, in our communities, in our schools, right? And we want to teach you some methods to be able to do things like harm analysis and risk analysis to make sure that the work that you are doing is ethical and is not going to harm people, right? So we think that designers have a responsibility to be thinking about these things and modeling out future scenarios. So foundational research is really all about asking great questions. That's the core of all research, is asking great questions and then coming back with that information, crafting insights, and then telling a story, telling the right story with the data that you go and you find. That information, those insights feed into actually coming into creating the design, right? So when you have gone through and you've run prototype tests and you've done formative testing, which is when you come up with some interesting ideas and run and talk to your users and try to find out what their preference is and what works for them and what doesn't. right, then you're going to want to be able to make it look great, right? So you've got to know enough about the visual composition principles, fonts, shapes, lines, colors, images, using optimal layout space and things like that. And we all know that type and color play a really big part in making great user interfaces. So we want to really teach you how to use different models and methods so that your color and your type are accessible, it's readable, and it's visually a wonderful pleasure to use. There's some really amazing things that we see going on with interaction design and animation, right? So we really want to get into showing you how you can design fantastic affordances and fantastic user experiences using tools like Webflow and Figma. Now, information architecture, this is something that is really critical to creating great design experiences. So how can you create good navigation and good grouping and good content when you're writing content for websites or your devices? And then, as I mentioned, we teach you about HTML and CSS, and you start learning something called responsive design. So this is being able to take your design work, move it across different devices, from a desktop to an iPad to an Android phone to a watch to a TV OS, right? You've got to be able to design experiences across different devices, right? So it's not all just apps and websites. It goes beyond that. The user experience goes far beyond that. And there's also some really exciting things coming out of Google with Material Design 3. So we get into how to use that framework and methodology in your designs. And we also look at Apple's human interface guidelines that show you how to design products for Apple devices. And you can see here, foldable devices have become a really good trend. So how do our designs adapt and work with foldable devices? In information design, we teach you how to create data visualizations and tables that are accurate, helpful, and scalable. Okay, so we want you to be able to communicate your research findings, your data findings with good data visualization skills. And working in cross-functional teams, you need to know what a product manager is, what a software engineer does, right? What a marketing team does, what a sales team does, what a support team does. Right? So good designers are uncompromisingly service-minded towards their peers, users, and colleagues, and your communication and presentation skills are going to be a big part of that. And we get into product strategy, right? So this is the other part in the whole Venn diagram of what product design is. Designing across the entire product development lifecycle. Again, it's not only how it works, it's not only what it looks like, but it's also, are we building the right thing, right? Have you identified what the users actually want, and can you work with it out in a competitive marketplace? So we teach you an interesting framework called Jobs to be Done to help you identify the right opportunities and help define a product strategy. And then again, that design portfolio is really going to be a critical outcome of your work here at Flatiron Design. Okay, we want you to make sure that your assets and your projects and your case studies are in a great place when you graduate. You get a year's worth of being able to use Webflow and Figma to create your portfolio, although there are many, many wonderful options out there to host your portfolio design work. And as I spoke earlier, we do have the Tech Prep and Career Prep support, where we work with you on personal branding and network opportunities, how you can do technical and cultural interviews, even negotiating job offers, right? Just want to make sure you have that support all the way through, because when you join us, you are really in a Flatiron community. So what does the actual daily schedule, what's the breakdown of the experience like in the live program? Well, typically you're going to start with stand up at 9 on the dot, meaning you're going to show up, you're going to define your tasks for the day and check in with your peers and your instructor and set your goals. Then you'll move into a time of lecture and discussion and workshops, right? Where you'll be meeting either in a physical room if you're in the in-person program, or a Zoom room with your instructor and other students. And you'll do collaborative workshops together, where it's not just an instructor talking to you or presenting to you. You are jumping in and doing the work with the instructor. So this is one of the most fun parts of the program, is when you're working in Figma, you're all working in that same program together, and you can see everyone's cursors moving and building the thing together. So it's really a hands-on experience, which is a really big, I think, change from other programs. You're going to also have a really fun lunchtime. Instructors will often do different show and tells. Sometimes you'll watch a conference together, conference talk, and come back and discuss. Sometimes you'll be in breakout rooms by interest or by geolocation. You'll get to know one another. So just really good community building during the lunchtime. And then in the afternoon, you're going to come back and kick off your labs. So labs are going to be independent time where you can work to create, to practice the skills that you learned earlier in the day. You might be meeting in group critiques, where you jump into a room with maybe 4 different designers and start giving feedback on one another's work, which helps you upskill and get better faster. And then at the end of the day, you'll come back together and you'll look at the work that you did throughout the rest of the day. All right, so that's the program overview, and that is really going to be the bulk of the experience that you're going to have at Flatiron. So I think now I would love to introduce 2 people to you who can talk a little bit about what they have experienced at Flatiron. Ashley Kays is one of our product design instructors, and I'd love for her to just give a brief overview of her experience at Flatiron and what she has seen since we launched the program last year. And then following that, I'll introduce you to Jessica, who is, Jessica, were you in the first cohort of students that graduated, or the second?
Yes, the first one.
Yeah, very first cohort. Yeah, awesome. So then I will open it up for Jessica to kind of give you a little bit about her story. Following that, we're going to have as much time as you want to get through your questions and really dig into a discussion. So Ashley, I'll kick it over to you.
Sure, thank you. That was a great overview. Appreciate that. Hi, everyone. As Joshua said, I'm one of the instructors here. And I think what I've noticed is that we've really been able to bridge this connection. So even if you do join us remotely through Zoom every day, we connect with each other in such a way that we really build, I think, lifelong networking opportunities and friendships. My cohort has come in, and each student generally goes through similar experiences in terms of maybe at first they're not sure if they're good enough, let's say, maybe they feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. So we really work through that to make sure that each person feels confident and identify different areas where you can feel really empowered and able to learn quickly and effectively, with lots of support, as Joshua mentioned. For the stand-ups, we try to do something every day to make them interesting and get to know each other a little better, share our skills and things that we've maybe created in the past, some of the things that we have each worked on in the past, regardless of industry. Worked with students everywhere from healthcare to retail to environmental engineers. I mean, almost anything you can think of. And I think the commonality that I've noticed between all the students is this desire to make the world better, and empathy, definitely a deep empathy, and this desire to make cool things that can change things as we know it. And definitely I can say with my students, I've created connections with them that I expect to know all of them the rest of my life. So I genuinely care about each of them, and we've had a really great experience and really great curriculum that Joshua's team has created. So it's been really fun and exciting to teach and to learn from the students and vice versa. So hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Ashley. All right, Jessica.
Ashley, yeah. And thanks, Joshua. Nice to see you again. Yeah, Ashley, you really did uh, express, even a lot of my experience as a student. So I was a student, I guess the first cohort back in September. I was introduced to product design through my best friend who was pivoting her career. We were both biopsych majors like years and years ago. We're both in our mid 30s, and she was switching out of her field into software engineering and taking a course or taking the going into the software engineering program at Flatiron. And so she kind of introduced me to Flatiron. And I just happened to discover this product design program, and reading and learning more about it, it really did describe everything that I loved and was passionate about, and all my past experience as well, things that I'm actually good at, and also things that I was curious about and would like to be, would like to learn more about and actually build skills in. So for me, I didn't come from such a tech background. I was, like I said, a biopsychology major. So I had a lot of research in my background in psychology and studying human behavior. But I actually, in my 20s, went into the art world pretty fiercely. And so I was studying classical painting over in Italy for years and teaching art. And back here in Orlando, I was a scenic painter for years, working for Disney and Universal, stuff like that. So, painting murals. And so going into this field of tech was definitely a whole new world. So, but, the program really did, and I said this before, but it really did change my life in such a positive way. And, what I love about the field is that every day, even outside of the program now, it's been like 4 months, I'm still learning something new every day. So being a part of this community of product designers, UX, UI, even through LinkedIn and all the connections I made through the program. I mean, I'm still daily, communicating with my fellow cohort mates and instructors. And, it's definitely a community that you feel like you're growing all the time, becoming better. And, everybody kind of, like you said, wants to, create a positive impact. So yeah, it's very exciting, and the program really did, impact me so positively. So yeah, that's just that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica, and good to see you too. So feel free to use the Q&A functionality there and type your questions, and you can direct them to Jessica, me, or Ashley if you like, or just ask in general, and one of us will jump in and answer. So ask anything about the program. You can ask about the student experience, about Ashley can tell you more about the other instructors if you want to hear about them and their background, and I can tell you about what I have seen people be successful. Well, what makes for a good, successful student coming into the program. So feel free to use that and ask any questions. We'd love to talk. I think one question, while you all are working on that, I think one question that we tend to get in these sessions is what types of backgrounds do we tend to see coming through the program, right? Whether it's a certain type of college major, a certain type of work experience, or things like that. And I will definitely open it up to Ashley and also Jessica, because you've been through and you know the peers from your cohort, and you can speak to the different backgrounds they came from. So I'll give my opinion first. We tend to see, I would say, a lot of people who either do have some type of arts or customer service background, or people who have been in the social sciences. So people with backgrounds in anthropology or psychology is often one that we see, right? Because the human behavior part is part of a foundational thing with UX, is studying human behavior and how people interact with digital products. So those are things that I've seen. Although let me tell you, it's a mixed bag. I mean, we have people who, I mean, I've seen at least 3 ballet dancers, people with a dance background come through here. I have seen someone who, several, in nursing, people who were nurses. I've seen people who were, I think one of the most interesting one was someone who was a personal assistant to a famous person, and I can't remember who they were, but it was someone that we would all recognize. It was like Dave Matthews or somebody like that. It was like their personal assistant, or maybe Bob Dylan. I'll have to see if I can remember in one of the programs, but that was what they've done for like 5 or 6 years, is be a personal assistant, and they transitioned, and I think now they're a product designer at maybe Stripe or Shopify maybe.
It looks like we got one question that came in. So this one's directed towards you, Jessica. With regards to the student experience, what was a typical day like for you?
Okay, yeah. So I did the live course. So it was how many months, Joshua? September, October, November, December. So yeah, like a 4-month course. And it was super intense, hours wise. I basically can't remember exactly. I think it was very similar to the hours that Joshua described, but it was a full day, 9 a.m. to, I would say, after 5 p.m. Because there were basically we had lecture in the morning, and then we had lab in the afternoon, and then we worked on our projects and met with our instructor one-on-one or worked together, and then continued to work on our projects at nighttime as well. So I would say, yeah, and then usually on the weekend I was working on projects, but really, for me, I approached the program knowing that this is what I was going to do for 4 months. I did the intensive program because I knew I could dedicate that time, and I could just work 200%, put 200% into it, get 200% back, hopefully. And I feel that that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, I may have been a little bit of a crazy person. I worked like all the time, but yeah, I would say for that program, it's a pretty, it takes up a lot of time, but once you're done with the 4 months, you have everything you need to land that role. So it's worth it. But that was my experience in that program.
Awesome.
I know you didn't ask, but I was just going to mention one thing, if you don't mind. For my cohort, all of them, I'm really careful about our mental health and creativity. So although it's really intense, we do take a lot of time to support each other and to cheer each other on a regular basis. And in terms of workload, just carefully balance it to make sure that not only do you feel, creative and kind of in the flow, but just excited about what's coming next. So just, try to think about our mental health and our ability to carry everything that we're handling in life in general in this current age.
All right. Ashley, I would love to go back to the first question that I posed about, the different backgrounds that we see people coming into the program from. So I'm wondering, in your experience, if you have seen any type of, a typical background, or do you just see it come from everywhere?
What I've noticed is that there is they're pretty diverse backgrounds. I've been very impressed with both of the cohorts that I've taught that there are so many skills that they have in terms of illustration, some of them, but that's only one set. Not everyone needs to have that skill. That's really a specialty, I'd say. I've seen everything from people that maybe did things like, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, but what would you say, yard maintenance, everything from that to retail to like I mentioned before, healthcare, dental assisting, environmental engineers, my goodness, so many different things. I'm trying to make sure I don't forget anyone. Art students, non-art students. So I think it's really more about a very similar desire to do something new. And a lot of them came to the conclusion that this would be a great fit based on maybe some research into coding and thinking, well, you know what, I don't really know if I want to be a coder, but I do want to create things. So although we do get into some coding, maybe they don't want to do the back end portion, where it's really intensive or algorithmic, type of coding, but more on the creative side, or even maybe from a research perspective, better understanding humans and who we're creating products for and what's needed out in the world. So I think the commonality is really definitely active interest and curiosity, and this desire to be in tech and create things, and just our world kind of appealed to them.
That's great. Yeah. Jessica, I wonder what you would say to someone who said that they wouldn't be able to use their background or their experience, their prior experience as a product designer. What would you say to someone who felt that way?
I would say that, I think, from my cohort, everybody came from completely different backgrounds. So, yeah, I think I was the only artist actually in the group, to be honest. There were teachers and architects and data analytic, people. And so I would say it really has to do with more a curiosity to ask why. And that's where I see it's a problem solving, a love for discovering problems and solving those problems. That's where I see the common denominator among product designers, is that they really do want to find out what the problem is and really want to find out the solutions. And yeah, everything else is kind of extra, to be honest. So I mean, that's what I would say would be the common denominator of people in this field. So it doesn't really matter the technical backgrounds of anybody.
So that something that lines up with that whole question. We have another question where someone out there is asking, I'm looking to pivot my career from social digital content strategy into UX writing specifically. Would you say that this course helps provide that proper background needed to make that transition?
That is a really good question. And I'm pausing because, not because it's a hard question to answer, it's a very easy question to answer, but I'm thinking about your background in social digital content strategy. Wow, that would help you so much in product design for a couple of reasons, right? If you're looking at marketing, if you're looking at social content, right, you're thinking about ways to persuade people to take some sort of action, right? So you've already got that foundation in looking at human behavior, right? And looking at human behavior in a digital context, right? And now you can just extend that into UX and UI design, and the research that props those decisions up. So for UX writing, yes, you need a good foundation in user research. You are going to need to be able to interview customers and users, and you're going to need to be able to take the results of that information and turn it into insights that inform your content strategy and your writing strategy. You're also going to want to know how to best collaborate with others who might be responsible for the presentation of what you write, right? So the typography and color, right? And when you learn about those things, you will be able to collaborate even better, making your UX writing more effective in its presentation. And then finally, I would say you're going to want to prototype. You're going to want to build prototypes of the content that you put out there, right? So learning how to run tests in a way where you're not biasing the test and your results are credible. You know how to collect the right metrics around UX writing and content specifically, right? Information architecture is going to have a big part of what you're doing with UX writing. So I just think there are so many nodes that connect to that thing that you want to specialize in our program. So we do have opportunities and content that would highlight UX writing, and we can help you create a portfolio that highlights your content strategy and UX writing. So you will have opportunities too to deep dive in UX writing. So while we may not have like particular training in certain areas there, you will be able to bring in, we have a partnership, for instance, with O'Reilly Learning. So students are able to use, I believe it's a year-long membership with O'Reilly Learning. So there's tons of great stuff on UX writing there, right? So what I think would be so cool is if you taught maybe like a 30-minute presentation on UX writing to your cohort. Like that's the kind of opportunities and like kind of things we try to think about is as a student, right? Can you teach back what you're learning to other people in your cohort? So we see some really cool opportunities there. Ashley, anything to add to that?
Sure, thank you. I'm glad you asked because I actually have 2 writers in my current cohort. And honestly, I have been so impressed with their abilities. There's a few excellent things that they've done. One, they are constantly helping the other students with ideas and creative solutions for everything from call to action to, improving the copy that they're using on their prototypes, but also on their real portfolio. And because I have these students with this active interest, we've also explored, in some optional labs, we've explored things related to UX writing and where these, pivot points are. The point is that the skill in UX writing can only benefit, the skill that you have in the back, I'm sorry, your background skills will benefit and fit so nicely, as Joshua mentioned, with this type of role. And you will learn some things, but in any program, you won't learn everything. So you'll continue to learn and evolve. And we give you lots of resources to continue expanding your skills and kind of point you in the right direction, like Joshua mentioned. And I think, we could definitely actively ignite what you're learning. Both of the writers in my class have just really impressed me with how they use that skill and continue to grow in those areas. They have also, showed some interest in search engine optimization relative to that as well. So it's interesting. I do know that you mentioned specifically, will you learn this? I think it's just a matter of you're going to learn so many things. And definitely it's one of the things in the UX world, but you're going to learn a lot of things in varying levels and just continue to grow and grow.
Awesome. So along the lines of pivoting careers and stuff, we have a question out here in regards to what's your advice for the job search process during that transition period after you graduated, if you kind of like want to put your skills to use?
I can start since I'm the most recent grad here. Yeah, so after graduating, it was a lot of working on making sure my portfolio represented me in my skills, told my story, my brand for the, for the companies or positions I was interested in. When applying, but in terms of gaining experience while you are in the job hunt, yeah, I had actually was lucky because I had a friend who was an online business coach, and she was a perfect I guess person that I could actually create a product for, because I had all the resources available. I already had all the skills from my program of knowing how to begin with the initial research, uh, you know, finding, performing jobs to be done, finding the user needs and problems to be solved, and ideating on possible solutions for this product for this company or this client, right? So that's what I started doing while I was job hunting. I started kind of working as a product designer right away, just continuing the momentum of the program, right outside of the program, just continuing that, because that's what you're doing. Like when you're in the program, you are a product designer. You're beginning right away. You're given projects to work on as if you were working for somebody, or you were given a task in your job. So you're learning as you do it, basically. So it's going to be fresh in your mind once you graduate. And so that's basically what I did. And it really was helpful talking about it. I talked about, my design process, and showed my work working for my friend, for her mobile app, for her business, in every interview that I've been in. And it also landed me basically it helped me land a position as a brand designer for a company called No Cap Interactive, where I basically do all of the branding and a lot of the UI for startups in underrepresented communities. So it's a really rewarding job, and it's part-time, so I'm still able to hunt for my full-time product design position, which I got my first offer today. Just want to announce that. Yeah, I'm very excited. So that's basically the transitioning. As long as you just keep the momentum of the program somehow, even if you're working for free or freelancing, that's kind of, it's all productive and working towards your goal of achieving that, position.
You should have led off with that news. Congratulations, Jessica. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, thank you.
You worked your butt off for that. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you want any further on that, or if that's.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, working in this field myself, I remember very well what it's like to go through the interview process. So one of the things that the students have worked on pretty creatively are different ways to stand out in the industry. Like, for example, adding posts on LinkedIn about topics that are relative to this industry, so they can build credibility and showcase what they know and stand out to hiring managers. I think a lot of my students have started early in the application process, so they could kind of get some practice in and get used to this. We also did a little project where we thought about the industries they wanted to be in, and thought about why this would be meaningful to them. So we really kind of created a map of why this mattered to them and what would help them prepare best for that type of role. So what do they need to do? I'm actually looking at one of the students' presentations right now, so I can use it as a reference. But they thought about their portfolio in advance. So just being really prepared so that when the time comes, you've already mentally gone through this practice and you stand out as a candidate because you have a sense of ease, because you know what you're going to be talking about with these hiring managers, and you know your stuff. And even some of the, like, for example, I'm reading some of the obstacles she said that she was facing was imposter syndrome, worries about building her portfolio. So anything that was mentioned in these areas, we just kind of dove in like, okay, how do we tackle these so you feel prepared? And so she has, how will I tackle these? And she said, imposter syndrome, fake it till she makes it. Practice every day, network with other boot camp graduates. So in other words, it's just a matter of really thinking through what you need to do to be ready, like almost as if you're preparing for your new role in a movie, So, and then her closing affirmations: I attract opportunities, I am talented, I am amazing, I'm an amazing product designer, and she is. So
yeah, the only thing I could even add to what they just said is continuing to like nurture that growth mindset post-graduation. It's the big thing, and that includes like engaging your community at Flatiron School and beyond. Several graduates I know have taken on freelance projects to improve their community, like doing some different social projects, just because they wanted to continue to exercise those skills and use their talents in a way that helps their community. I'm meeting with a graduate, Sophie. She was in your cohort, right, Jessica? I'm meeting with her tomorrow, like to go over. She's got a interview, and she was feeling nervous, and she said, "Would you do a mock interview with me so that I can just get that out?" And I was like, "Heck yeah! Like, let's get in there and do it." So, being proactive and taking ownership of just continuing to like just keep going, right? That's what I'd add.
All right. It looks like we have one more question. From Jessica's side and Ashley side, what were the labs and pre-work like?
For me, okay, so the labs were, okay, so there was a lot in a day for me. I don't know if the curriculum has changed, but the lecture, you learned a whole bunch in the first part of your day, which was connected to some workshops within the lecture itself, which was all related. And those workshops were really intense. They were timed. Usually you had to work in groups and really accomplish a lot in a short period of time. The labs after lunch for me were sort of something new to learn. So even, it was even more additional information to learn, but they were more relative to what we were working on in projects. So again, it was like very helpful because we could transition from a lab, which we usually were working individually on the labs, but we had clear instructions from our cohort instructor, and gave us basically the afternoon to work through, figure out, really absorb and understand the information. And also, if you're new to a lot of these programs, the software, it gave you time to really work Figma if you're not, used to, working with Figma, or I think it was basically Figma that we used, but that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit, yeah, for me, it was very helpful in that way. And then you could transition into working on your project with the new information you just dove into with your lab, as well as sometimes you might have to show and tell what you did in lab later in the day to the rest of your cohort mates, which is also good because gives you that experience of presenting and explaining your work, or maybe basically a little bit of persuasion, a little bit of representing yourself and your design. So for me, that's what that's what labs pre-work for me. I don't know, the first cohort, we had it a little different. It looks like you're doing a lot more now with Figma and Webflow, which is really, I mean, that's great. I think that's wonderful. I can't remember really what our pre-work was for the first cohort, but yeah, that's all I got for that.
So for my cohorts, it's similar. You know, we do a lecture earlier in the day. Sometimes there's a workshop, a hands-on workshop, and then later in the afternoon we work on a lab together. As Jessica mentioned, there is some independent work. There's also some collaborative work. Definitely a lot of time in the water cooler brainstorming, and then generally my students present their previous lab the next day every time, so that we can give feedback and they can get a lot of practice presenting, like she mentioned. And we also try to treat those presentations as if we were presenting to our team or our client. So there's a lot of comfort by the time we really get to that scenario in the real world. I think it's a really supportive environment in terms of everyone wants to see each other succeed. So there's a lot of help. And if anyone doubts themselves, a lot of times we'll see them kind of rally around that person to see what they can do to help and, you know, cheer them on until everyone feels strong in what they're presenting and in what they're doing. I did have one student this time that was really afraid to speak publicly. And so what we did is in the beginning, she wouldn't go, but now, and that was fine. I was like, would you like me to talk through your work? And, you know, I'll just tell you what I see. But now she's one of the first ones to volunteer. You know, we've built this supportive place where people share their work and their thoughts and their aspirations, and hopefully are learning a lot along the way. So that's what ours are like.
I can add a little bit too about pre-work, since yes, it has changed slightly, Jessica, since you went through the program. It takes about 20 to 40 hours. I put this in the chat, but primarily it's recorded lectures and content and reading. And then there are some short projects that you're going to work on, as well as some quizzes to help test your knowledge. And most of the rest of it is training, right, in the software tools. So Figma and Webflow practice sessions. We do have a Slack channel for the part-time people and the live people going through pre-work, so you can get some support and help from the admissions team if you get stuck or run into issues or just need some feedback on what you're working on. And then you do have access again to some live sessions where you can get some help and training in the software tools. Again, just making sure that you are like at a baseline for day one, so that, you know, there's nothing really holding you back from like getting perfectly absorbed in the material from day one.
There's one other thing I forgot to mention we didn't bring up, and that's the one-on-ones. We have a lot of, Joshua reminded me just now when he talked about one-on-one help with any tools. We do also have one-on-ones where we talk through your goals and, you know, what you're learning in the program, and also opportunities to work one-on-one on a particular thing that you may need help with or want to explore in more detail. So those opportunities exist as well.
So it looks like we got a question in from our live New York event. So it is, yeah. Let's see. The attendees there would like to know what the program is like for part-timers.
Yeah, part-time online. So I mentioned in the presentation that you're getting the same core curriculum, right? But it's just a different pace. So one thing that the part-time program utilizes and needs is a pacing strategy or pacing guide, right? So we have actually software that Flatiron has built that help you accomplish the milestones to get through the program, right? So you're never lost, you're never sure what your next steps are, how long you need to work to complete the milestone or to complete that module or lesson. So that is a resource that you have access to, is a pacing guide online. All of the lectures, you get access to the live lectures. So you can, if you find an instructor that you really like, like Ashley, then you can access a lot of her recorded lectures for the material for that day's lesson or that module in our program. You also meet one-on-one. So there are, I cannot remember how many required one-on-one sessions right now off the top of my head, but you are assigned an instructor. So you will be meeting one-on-one with an instructor, also a career coach, right? So again, the timeline is just expanded, right? Or contracted, because you can choose 20 weeks or 40 weeks, I believe, to get through the program in terms of the milestones. But you get the same support, the same experience, just in a different timeline. I'd say the difference is you're not showing up to like daily classes. It's the same experience in terms of labs, because all of the students are in the same Figma file completing the lab. So you can actually view one another's lab work and kind of see what everyone else is doing to check your progress and kind of get feedback and things like that. There are also many community sessions and live sessions that you do have access to sign up for and attend just on an ongoing rolling basis. We do a lot of those. Yeah, and you'll get feedback directly from your instructor, just like in the live program. So all of your project work and all of your module assessments, those are all graded and with rubrics, and you get feedback from your instructor. It might be written feedback, it might be you might get a video. Some instructors like to record video walkthroughs of your designs and giving you tips and feedback and how to improve. So that's in every project and assessment as well, and it's the same for the part-time program. I think that's the end of our questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, this has been really, really great. Thank you everyone so much for attending and for asking really great questions. Again, congratulations to Jessica. I can't say it enough for landing that job. That's just so exciting. Oh, I did see there's another question here that came in. Do you want to read that one, Tim?
Yeah, definitely. So in regards to, do you get applications from international students? They realize after attempting to enroll the program, it is only available in the US. After doing their research and several info sessions, they are willing to make a trip to go through the admissions process and embark on a journey. But they are curious to know if it's possible and beneficial for a job search outside the US.
Yeah, I'd say 100% for a job search outside the US. I would want to like put you in contact with the admissions team and make sure that you are doing an in-person video call with them to just iron out a lot of the details, because I want to make sure that you would have like the tech support and the career services support post-graduation that you needed. And there could be some like, licensing and issues like that. So I would just encourage you to reach out and schedule a session with our admissions team to ask some very direct and specific questions around your particular scenario. But if you're asking about the product design skills and course preparing you for an international job search, absolutely. Yeah. There's just some amazing product designers in practice in many different countries. And Flatiron used to run a program in London, actually, previously. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, please connect with us on LinkedIn. Feel free to email Ashley or I. It's our first and last name, first.last name at flatironschool.com. Twitter, LinkedIn, however you want to engage. We'd love to talk to you. So, all right, Tim, any final words?
Yeah, thank you so much, you guys, for coming out. Thank you for the New York, the people in New York City that came out to the event out there. I hope this has been very informative, and yeah, and hope to see you guys soon.
Thanks. Good night.